What's up, my friends? It's been a minute. I don't know how long it's been. Honestly, I think it's been like 2 weeks. Took a week off, had a couple days there where things popped up and I missed out for whatever reason. You're back here with me preparing for MLB DFS. We're finally here. We're all excited for it. We were all a little nervous about the season potentially not starting on time. We were nervous that we're going to have to keep focusing on the super volatile end of season NBA. Meanwhile, we do have playoffs coming up, which is fun in and of itself with the shortened 8 and 9-man rotations, guaranteed minutes, and price tags that are pretty consistent throughout the rest of the playoffs. NBA playoffs is a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun doing that. But beginning MLB, I'd say the first 3 months, probably right around like middle of July, it starts to get really difficult. And a lot of us start to turn towards like best ball and preparing for NFL season. August, I think last year, right around like August 10th or so, we were all kind of like, listen, 4 months of MLB, it's very difficult. And let's prepare for the NFL season. Starting doing those NFL preseason streams. We'll probably follow a similar path. Now, meanwhile, Dab and Puggle was out there winning 100K. Like, what are y'all doing? Why'd y'all leave? MLB's fine. Let's go. Well, part of what makes him so adept at being ahead of the game is his time he spends in Fantasy Cruncher. Now, Fantasy Cruncher is a tremendous tool, and I will say hi to chat in a hot second. I've missed you all so much. I really have. Stream life is much different than the video as I pop out. So this has been, I've missed it. I've missed, talking with you guys. It's a little bit different than posting a video for people. But let's talk about Fantasy Cruncher real quick. There has been some significant changes to the overlay, and I want to talk to you today specifically about how to get back to maybe your classic view, how to go bare minimum. And the coolest part to me is being able to save views. Yeah, you can actually save a Fantasy Cruncher layout, which I think is absolutely glorious. That's going to be maybe the coolest part to this update, in my opinion, because everybody wants something different in the way they like it. Now, taking in information is different for each and every person. Sometimes people are able to absorb a ton of data on the screen. Other times it's overwhelming and they're like, just give me bare bones, baby. Well, Dave was like, listen, y'all, I got you. Whatever you want done, you can have now. So that's the first thing we're going to cover today. And we're going to make sure that we do that before we dive into the rest of kind of MLB DFS. This is going to be, what do we have today through Wednesday, 3-part stream. Yeah, so we'll have today, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We're basically going to do like a refresher course of how to use Fantasy Cruncher for MLB DFS. I will touch lightly on the teamriserfall.com tools and content and things and how we suggest using it with Fantasy Cruncher, more so probably on Wednesday. And then, of course, as the season gets underway, we're going to spend a ton of time in lineup study, lineup review, lineup rewind, and we'll be reviewing what we could have done, what we should have done, what we did do, and look at like the trends that the professional DFS players are doing and using. And we're going to try to emulate their success by honestly trying to figure out what exactly they're doing and set up parameters to have something similar. And hopefully we're able to start off the season hot. Last year was incredible, and I feel like we're going to be able to do the same thing together this year. Chat, what is up? Let me say hi to you real quick, and then let's dive into FC stuff. I am Chappie. What's good, dude? Good to see you. Appreciate you being here. What's up, Mike? MLB is almost here. Yeah, I can taste it. It's exciting. The excitement is palpable for sure. What's up, Eric? Good to see you. CG, my man. What's up, my dude? What's up? Larry, Money Train ROF rolls on. Yes, it does. We're back at it. What's up, Bennett? LFG. Let's freaking go, as I like to say. Yo, what's up, man? So pumped. Let's go. What's up, Pat? Appreciate your articles, dude. Those are glorious. Super helpful for members. Absolutely. Let's go. Best sport coming back? No doubt, Aaron. I think a lot of people over the years, honestly, as things have become more volatile across all sports, I think MLB has become one of the better sports to be playing DFS in. It's kind of right there with NBA for me over the last 2 seasons specifically, because, it's primarily based on correlation, and the volatility already baked in. As long as you are building the proper type of constructed lineups, you're in a good spot night after night because there's a large portion of the field that still has no freaking clue how to build good lineups, and they do not adjust as the season rolls along. They're sitting here going 4-4s on FanDuel, 5-2 on DraftKings, same thing they did in 2018. Things change. Things change from month to month based on the season, based on the temperature. Our hitters starting to hit again. Do we want large stacks, mini stacks, things like that? So we'll pay attention to that. What's up, Steve? Good to see you, dude. Should have started already if the holdout didn't happen. Trav says, let's go. Missed the DFS streams. Been preoccupied with Spari and props, so it's all good. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun over there. No doubt about it. Where you been, D? Hope all is well. All is great, my friend. I've been overwhelmed with significant workload. The switch to the private Discord channels has added another element of responsibility that I was unaware that was going to happen, which is why I kind of sent those alerts out and trying to figure out if we're going to have like different layers of private chat and things like that. So Spari videos have been fired. They've been going very well. That's for sure, bro. Appreciate you. What's up, Kenny? Welcome back, dude. MLB data files 8 MG. What is that? What, MB? Is the G closer to B? Yeah, he's thinking megabytes. Megabytes. Oh my gosh. Can't wait for y'all to see this shiz. Can't wait to see it, dude. I can't wait. We had our MLB meeting last night with the staff. We spoke for about 50 minutes. We've got some baller deliveries coming at you this season. Things will be a little bit different, but I think it'll be more efficient for all users. And hopefully you guys will be in a better spot to win some money, which is all we're here for, right? What's up, David? What's up, T-Wade? Appreciate you both. Thank you for checking us out again today. I remember last season there was a turning point. We started focusing on better bats since they hit dingers. Yeah, I kind of alluded to that earlier in the stream. As the season warms up, right, and you start to get hotter weather, the bats start to roll around, you go larger stacks. We saw earlier in the season, mini stacks were kind of winning more often than not early in the season. So we'll see how that goes. We'll do some lineup study for sure. Okay, so FC, let's get after it today. These are 30-minute streams, no time to waste. And I just wanted to say hey to everybody. If you're here first time ever, promo code STREAM, bottom left-hand corner, you get $5 off on our website. That is teamriseorfall.com. And if you end up wanting to, use Fancy Cruncher, by the way, you get $20 to use at FC every single month if you're one of our members, because we are partnered with them, which is why I support them every single day right here at 1 p.m. Eastern. Every single day, I support all FC users, whether they're my members or not. And if you could just do that, what Larry just said, just smash the like button for me. It's been a hot minute since I said that for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cool. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you. All right. So this new columns, first thing everybody needs to see. Now, there is a ridiculous amount of information that you guys can have in here. Now, you've got the show hide columns hitting the down arrow here if this is what you're used to looking at, right? There's all sorts of values. Stats will be here. Lots of stats will be here. And by the way, if you are taking the data from, teamriseorfall.com and you're uploading our metrics, our player ratings, your projections, ownerships, our tiered rankings, right? All the letter rankings and things like that. If you're going to upload all the rise percentage, stack ratings, all that stuff, you're going to throw it in here. This will fill up in a hurry. You'll be looking at 15, 20 columns in a hot second. You're going to be like, man, it's a little overwhelming. I'm not sure if I can keep this up, right? Maybe it's just a bit too much for you. So the major thing that you can do for yourself is learn this. I don't think this is what people, this one, the drop-down arrow, is the best way to go anymore, because I love the idea of literally just saving your own personal view. So you could upload all your favorite things you want, all the metrics, all the data you want in here all the time. And you can save columns as quick view and then upload the data in there and everything's super smooth. Now, if you're like, well, Mitch, I don't adapt well. Classic everything for me, right? Okay, guys, you click this new columns button, you go to quick views, and you can click Classic FC. Bang. If this is what you're used to seeing every year and you're like, yep, that's it, Mitch, that's all I want. That's all I care about. Well, then there you go. You can do that for sure. Been saving vouchers to upgrade to MLB Premium? Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing, right? With teamriseandfall.com, you get a $20 voucher towards Fantasy Cruncher every month. That's $240 per year. So truly, you could save up a couple months here and get FC MLB Premium for a month or FC Pro for a month, whatever you want to do with your money. We just give you those vouchers monthly and you use them here. Thank you, Dave, for that. If you're like, well, first off, I love being able to see the team logo and stuff like this and the color coordination, because this is super duper helpful if you are coming here and you are looking at like trying to look at like just a very quick scan of the top projected players and teams and things like that. It's like, oh wow, look at that. Like I don't even have to look at the names or anything else, the prices. I'm like, okay, there, yeah, the Toronto 4 hitters for Yanks. There's another Toronto, right? 5 of the top 9 projected players in the day are Toronto Blue Jays, and so on and so forth. So I like this, but if you wanted to turn that off, right here again, additional options. You can turn off the team logos. Boom, they're gone. All right. So again, not everybody learns or absorbs information the same way. You might have to make your own. And again, when you're all done, save your own view how you want to save it. I will leave the logos on because I enjoy them. And then let's say you're like, oh my gosh, I only want to see player. All right. You've got the player name, the team, position, salary, and the projection. You're like, that's all that matters to me. Well, then you can actually do that now. You can go to bare minimum. It's mobile friendly. I think this is extremely cool because I'm going to be honest. I am somebody who's like, slam in 30 columns. I want all the data in the world in front of me, right? But I know for a fact that there's a portion of the users out there that are saying to themselves, no, that's too much. I get overwhelmed. Bare minimum. And that option's for you, my friends. I want you to make sure you're comfortable with selecting how you're going to be using FC, because being comfortable in FC is honestly the first step to success. Once you select exactly what you want, let's just go with classic today, just because this is what we're used to. And you guys can all fiddle around with this how you want on your own time. I don't need to do that for you today. You go up here, you make sure you have the correct, spring training, 1 o'clock slate, the afternoon. You select what you want to have for the day. All right, you go to advanced options, and here is where the magic starts to happen. So uniques, right? MLB, a lot of people kind of roll out 3. Although if you're keeping a very tight stat group, I think if you're going like, I'm only rotating 4 teams today, or, it's an 8-team slate, and you've said, I'm only using Toronto, Boston, and Philly, 3 teams to stack. Well, then you know what? You might want to tighten up your player pool as well. By using less uniques. That is totally up to you. Salary, minimum, maximum, all this. Hitters versus pitcher. You really don't do this unless it's like a 2-game slate or a showdown slate. The global exposure. Now, this is going to be similar to what we kind of highlighted when we did our NHL lineup study for MLB. And we will do some MLB lineup study. I do want people to go here, and I want them to go back and see, what are the pros doing last season? What was their exposures on players, and when they were, throwing out max lineups and stuff, what was the exposure, right? Just that's important. And you'll often see pitcher will have a couple players who are higher owned, especially on small slates, which most of these spring training slates are. And then you'll see a lot of hitters. It's spread out, very similar to hockey, very similar to PGA, where you'll have several hitters in the 20s or so, few maybe in the 30s, and everybody else is very, very low. We're going to do a lot of lineup study. So one thing you might want to do differently than other sports is when you set a global cap, you might want to do something like that where you're saying pitchers 65%, but then you're going to go to hitters, and maybe you want to do less, maybe fewer, maybe 40% global cap here. This is something you need to understand will make major ripple effect, will have major ripple effects on what you're doing in your pools. Truly. Check this out. So I'm going to add randomness back in. All right. And then maybe for hitters, okay, I clicked on this 3 bars, and this is something we've talked about in the past. For hitters, you probably, I shouldn't say probably, depends on how your projections are. It depends on if you have FC Pro. It depends on a lot of different things. You're going to maybe want to put some randomness in there for your hitters. It's a very, very volatile position. It's not like pitching. Pitching is very similar to like your quarterback. All right. You don't need as much randomness. And I also want to highlight one thing. This is extremely important. I've touched on this in the past. In NBA DFS and PGA, these sports where people will be projected for 55 points, a 10% randomness factor might, move the range to 50 to 60, right? 5 points higher at 55, 5.5 points higher. Let's say they have a 50-point projection. You do a 10% randomness on a 50-point projection, and you're saying, well, what's 10% of 50? 5, right? So now your range is between 45 and 55 for that player every time you crunch a lineup. 150 lineups are crunched. You'll have, an FC Pro, a distribution curve that's really close to that 50 for most of your lineups, and then it'll kind of spread out a little bit more. So you'll have the least lineups that are at a 45-point projection, the least lineups at a 55-point, and most hovering around like 48 to 52. Now, because NBA has such high projections, a 10% has drastic changes. MLB, let's look at the hitters real quick. MLB projection, the highest projected hitter right now today is George Springer. If you gave him a 10% randomness, that's 1.46. That's all. 10% of 14 versus 10% of 50, drastic differences, right? So 10% of a 14-point projection only makes this a range of outcome between 12.8 and 15.2 if his projection was 14. I'm just rounding it, okay? So the randomness, you can get away, as you see Fonzie making a joke in there about 3,000, half-heartedly joking. With baseball, you can go much higher with your randomness factor. Now, if you have FC Pro, I would say you can go much higher. If you have FC regular, right, you're just doing the regular FC, classic, I should say, you might not want to go too high with your randomness factor because you still want that median projection to be used the most. You want most of your crunches to be around the median projection rather than the random data plot points, which the classic randomness would be. Okay. So like if I said 50% of 14 is 7. So now I'm saying between 7 and 21. About 67% of your crunches would be between about 11 to 17 points. And your other 33% of your crunches for George Springer would be that outlier, 7 to 11 and 18 to 21 points. Just about. I'm roughly estimating this math. I'm trying to give you a little example of how the randomness works. So you can go a little bit higher on your hitters. What that also does, if you do not put a randomness factor on your hitters, okay, when you crunch out your lineups, you will often have a heck of a lot of exposure to the same bats on the same team for your stacks. So if you ran out 30 Toronto 5-man stacks today, you might have George Springer in a ton of those. You might have George, Teoscar Hernandez, Vlad Guerrero, and Bo Bichette as like 4 of the only 5 hitters used. And maybe Gurriel and, I don't know, give me one more Toronto hitter. Tapia. I don't even know he plays for Toronto now. Are the only 2 other players not used here. And then 3 other hitters in the lineup aren't even touched. But as soon as you're spread out there, and by the way, what it would do too, it would say Springer, Hernandez, Guerrero would be in like 20 of the 30 combinations. It's like for MLB, you want more randomness because you might want Springer, Hernandez, Bichette, Gurriel, Springer, Guerrero, Gurriel, Tapia. Like you want to spread out your exposure even within your stacks. And one quick way to do that is just making sure you have some randomness on the hitters themselves. Groups is something I do not use very often for MLB. I do know that people use them. I believe Dabin Puggle was talking about that recently. Not something I do, though. Team stacks is where I live for MLB. So right here is where you're going to be selecting the size of your stacks. Like let's say you're a big 5-stack believer. We've talked about in the past of, the amount of exposure on your stacks. is entirely up to you. It's how risk adverse you are. With MLB being extremely volatile, your 5-player stacks, you might be super comfortable with only 30%, on any one team. So you would come here, there may be 44%, something random, right? 44% is the most. And then on your max gap, by the way, the gaps, let's talk about that before we get to the second player stack. The gap is the amount of spaces between your stacked players. So if you have a 1 gap, it could be like the number 1 hitter for Toronto, gap, and then the 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. There would never be any more than 1 gap between your stacks. That's all I'm saying. If you have no gap, well, then it could be, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It could be these 5 hitters right here. There's no gap in between them. It strings them together. So this is entirely up to you. I would suggest spending some time in lineup rewind and figuring out, the impact that having 3 gaps makes in your lineups versus 2 versus 1 and versus no, or maybe saying any, depending on the slate size. So I'll leave that up to you. And if you ever want to take like certain bats out, like you're like, well, I can't stand the 9-hitter in Toronto's lineup, well, then you just remove them. Okay. Over here, you can sort by the max projected stacks. You could sort by, if you're looking for a value stack for the day, max value stack. You guys can sort by the Vegas projection, whatever the heck you want to do, right? Like, let's say you're looking at Vegas, you're like, well, more often than not, I keep seeing the top, 3 projected Vegas implied run totals. One of them always explodes every day. Okay, so maybe you're saying to yourself, you want to remove all teams except for the top 3 Vegas implied run totals. Now, again, you're going to have some chalky stacks here. Team Vegas prediction will often be some of the higher owned stacks. I just sorted by max ownership. Oh, there's no ownerships today in spring training, I guess. Okay, so I'm just going to add everybody in. Now you go over here, add team stack, and your other side, you're like, yeah, I like 2-player stacks because I want a one-off. Okay, cool. And because you felt real comfortable with, 40% on 44% on your 5-player stacks, your 2-player stacks, you said only 20%. So that means Toronto stacks could be a total of 64% of your lineups, meaning 36% of all of your lineups will not have Toronto players stacked together. It does not mean a Toronto player will not end up in your lineup, because the last part you would do, most people like to do this, is you go to your team stack and you would make a 1-player stack, and then you can control this here, right? I don't know, 20%, 25%, whatever. Now, if you have said, and this is where math comes into play, your number 1 stack can be 45%. So Toronto could be 45% of your lineups could have a 5-player Toronto stack. 20% could have a 2-player stack. So 45 plus 20% is 65%. And then you say a 1-player stack of 25%. So 65 plus 25 is now 90%. That means only 10% of your lineups could potentially be without a Toronto Blue Jay, unless you did more manipulation, you edited those percentages, and you changed things how you want to change them. So this is totally up to you. And let me see chat. Clement is asking, is randomness same as variance? Randomness is how random each projection is based on each crunch. If you want to embrace the variance, the volatility, I should say, in MLB, and add more variance to your lineups, then randomness is how you would achieve that goal. So if you want to embrace variance in your lineups, right? Because MLB, especially with MLB, is so volatile, then add randomness to your lineups would be the answer. Anyways, randomness is essentially a way to incorporate variance. Cool. That's a much smoother answer than what I just said. So 5, 2, 1. I've got my percentages set up. I'm good to go. If you wanted, and by the way, I heard my guy last night, Davin Puggle, talking about how he makes groups for his one-off hitters. And I found that incredibly interesting. I've never actually done that. So like he would do something like this. Maybe his one-offs for the day. These guys, whatever. This guy, okay. Here's one-offs. Click this here. Oh. In a rush, I clicked the wrong button. Okay. Boom. There we go. There's my one-offs. Bunch of random commandos. Click the arrow. Add group. All right. You've got your one-off. And you could say at least one player from this group. Now, how he might potentially do it might be different. But I would imagine this is how he creates his one specific. No, actually, that's a good question. I want to ask him this. Maybe you guys can ask him this in chat. Because this would only make sure that Carlos Correa ends up in a lineup. And if he does get used, maybe it ends up being a 5-player Minnesota stack. Does not have any impact on the one-off. Yeah, Dab and Puggle. So this is a cool thing. So Dab is actually writing an article based on people's questions. You're supposed to be tagging him in Discord, right? So you guys post a question in Discord in the Ronin chat. Tag Dab and Puggle. And he's gathering them all to make an article to answer questions. And Dab and Puggle, if you don't know who he is, I mean, this guy has, 8 or 9 live finals MLB seats and NBA seats. I think most are MLB. Multiple 100K winner. I mean, this guy's a brilliant, brilliant DFS mind. And he mentioned last night in the staff meeting, he does groups. I believe he mentioned he does groups for his one-offs. So good question. That's probably something to ask him. I'm intrigued myself. Whatever he says, we'll execute it next stream, and we'll see. Anyways, I had my stack set up. You saw the alert come up, said the Giants starting lineup is out today, so that's cool. We know our starting lineup is ready to rock and roll here. Looks like, and you know how I can tell who is confirmed lineups? When you go to up here, if it shows green, it's confirmed. If it shows orange, it would be unconfirmed. Arizona looks like the only unconfirmed team. Meaning, if you're like, well, Mitch, I got to build my lineups. My lunch break's over soon. Okay, Sam. Well, guess what? For the early games, you have nothing to wait for. If you're trying to build for the 4 o'clock game, you're actually pretty dead set on 7 of the 8 teams. And, hopefully Arizona is not too inaccurate with the projected orders. Okay? And then you'd crunch out however many lineups you want to make. I haven't done this in over a year, but you would build your lineups out. Remember, I already set up my team stacks, got my uniques and all set up. I got my exposures capped for pitchers at 65. I've got randomness on hitters at 20%, capped at 40% global cap, so on and so forth. Here's my used. And you go to hitters, and if you're looking at this, there you go. And I'm like, you're looking at this, you're like, that's still too much on any one hitter. Okay, change it. Do whatever the heck you want. Like maybe all catcher hitters suck today. So you're like, I really want to spread it out. Okay, well then go to the catcher spot and maybe do 20% global cap and really spread it out. Like the world is your oyster for MLB. And I'll also say this, there's no like wrong way to do things for MLB DFS. There really isn't. I think there's some general guidelines you need to follow, like making sure you have correlation in your lineups. Look, and you can see my lineups are set up like this. So here's Toronto, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters. Here's the Yankees, 2 hitters. And Rafael Devers for Boston is the one-off. Like, that's a dope lineup. If you like Toronto 5-man stacks, you got DJ LeMahieu and Giancarlo Stanton as the 2-player stack. Now, here's the deal. Remember what I told you about the gaps? Look at the impact it made. So Toronto stack is a 1-hitter, the 2-hitter, the 3-hitter, the 4-hitter, skips the 5 and goes right to the 6th. So that's a 1 gap. But because I had any gap selected, DJ LeMahieu as a one-off, as the leadoff. Stanton, we skipped 2 hitters here. So conceivably, the correlation here might not be good enough. What if LeMahieu gets on base and then one of the 2nd or 3rd hitter in the lineup drives him in? You now lose that RBI extra correlation here from Giancarlo Stanton, who does not have the opportunity to drive in DJ LeMahieu. He might get up and there's no one on base anymore. So when you're doing this, it does matter. And I didn't want to tell you what's right or what's wrong, but when you're setting up your gaps, you might want to pay attention to your stack sizes. Now, one impact this happens as soon as you start adding or editing your gaps All right, look at this. So LeMahieu is the one hitter. You skip the two hitter. Now it's the Aaron Judge, the three. So things changed a little bit in that stack. But usually it starts to slow down the crunches. Like if I were to go to a 5-player and say, I don't want any more than one gap in any lineup. And now I go to crunch. It's still pretty fast, but it's a little bit slower. Like the other one was done at 150. This is pretty fast still. This is still pretty fast considering all of the tweaks I have made. Why, my friends? Randomness. The randomness factor speeds everything up. It's already something we should probably be using for MLB hitters. And you could also put this on individuals. So if you're like, well, I want randomness for my pitchers too, okay. Maybe JP Sears is super volatile, high upside guy, but super volatile. Okay, well then you give him a 40% randomness, right? Like Kevin Gossman, used to be Kevin Gascan, does not need randomness. Maybe he's more predictable, and he gets the matchup against Detroit, which sucks against right-handed pitchers for the past 5 years. Okay, so maybe you have no randomness there, but maybe anybody against Philly that can bomb the ball or also strike out 40 times in a game, maybe you'll use randomness for that player, and so on and so forth. It's up to you. Dang, that sucks, Dewey. But I'll tell you what, the beauty of this, everything we covered, going over the columns, going over advanced settings, going over stacks, going over the reasoning behind all of this stuff, player pools, making groups, all of these things today. By the way, then you can go see your team stacks and you're like, well, I have way too much New York Yankees 5-player stacks. Or maybe you're looking this, you're like, well, if I have 40% Yankees 5-man stacks and they're super chalky, maybe I don't want to be on them too much as 2-player stacks, because if they're already chalk, are these 2-player stacks really going to compete with any 5-man stacks? So maybe if the Yankees are the highest projected owned stack team today, maybe you don't even have 2-player Yankee stacks. Maybe you're saying, if they go nuclear, I want 5-player stacks. And if they get shut out, I want my other 60% of my lineups that have no Yankees in them, right? You can make those strategy decisions. That's totally up to you. That's totally up to you. All right, guys. Good stream, 30 minutes, my return stream. And I tell you what, I can already feel it in my voice. I'm like out of shape. My voice box is out of shape. Got to get back through my own spring training. I guess these 3 streams are going to be my spring training. I like the viewership back today. I know that you're hungry for MLB at DFS. I think this stream was amazing because I needed it. And that's why it's amazing. It was for me. You just happen to be here. Most of what I do for DFS, most of what I stream, most of the videos I create, they're for me. Super selfish. Super selfish. I'm not doing this for you. I do what I think is good for me. And I think generally it ends up being good for most people. Why is this a good recipe for success? I think ideally, I'm not sitting here trying to create for the masses. I'm just doing what I think is most useful for the common user, the average Joe. Anybody who's like, dang, it's been a year of using MLB DFS and FC. I think I should have a refresher course. That's what my stream's going to be. It's not, okay, what do the members need here? Okay, they like when YouTube streams have 5 picks in video. Okay, they can go find that. What I find most helpful is spending the time studying, trial and error, researching, and then live testing. So that's what most of my streams are here on YouTube. Beastie is going to be creating some picks videos here on YouTube for the MLB season. So that'll be cool. So you'll get the best of both worlds for MLB here on this YouTube channel. You'll get morning Beastie videos and you'll get my daily 1 p.m. stream. Hit the sub button and you'll get whatever you want here on this channel. And teamreservoir.com, use promo code STREAM. You'll get $5 off your first month and then get your $20 off towards the greatest optimizer on earth, fantasycruncher.com, as our partner site. I appreciate y'all, and I will see you on the inside.